Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a new featured location. Featured locations occur 40% more often or in 40% more games, and so we're going to see Oscorp Tower quite a bit over the next couple of days. Now Oscorp Tower, after turn 3, all cards here are going to swap sides. And so this one can be pretty interesting. You can try to do something like throw a whole bunch of low-cost minions there. That way when it triggers, it will flip to their side. They'll be stuck with whatever you sent. But overall, by turn 3 or after turn 3, you really don't have a lot of potential to do some really strong disruptive plays. You could do some, but most of the time those are not going to be consistent in the games where you don't draw into Oscorp Tower. Now, the one card that I can think of that is going to be incredibly consistent with this is Electro. And so we're going to do another take on an Electro build that was suggested by one of our viewers, one of our channel members, and one of the members of our Discord. And so first things first, I finally have a variant in the shop that I'm going to buy. We have waited a long time for this. It's not my favorite Wong variant, but we're going to buy it nonetheless. We have been waiting so long for a Wong variant that we would take absolutely any at this point. And so now we finally have a variant for Wong. We're not going to use that today. I think that is an important check off of our bucket list. And then we're actually going to change back from the Hawkeye that was gifted back to Uadu. I really like the look of the avatar that they gifted us. I wanted to use it a couple of days just to kind of represent that gift that they gave us, but now I want to go back to something more individualized. With that being said, let's go ahead and switch over into the deck explanation. So this deck list was recommended and created by a user named Alexander Burkat. If you've been in very many of our lunch live streams, or you're in our Discord, you probably have a good idea of who Alexander is, but they left this suggestion. I tried it out, I had a lot of success with it, so I did want to feature it, especially with how good Electro is going to be in the Oscorp Tower lane. Alright, so as you can tell, this is a different take on an Electro build, or a ramp deck, and it has a lot of cards that I really enjoy running. So I really enjoy running a Lockjaw and Thor deck list. And this one is built in a way that it doesn't always rely on either Thor or Lockjaw. You have a lot of paths to find a winning condition. You can either do Electro flat onto the board, do a 5-cost on 4, something like an Arrow, a Vision, a Captain Marvel, and then you can do your 6-cost on turns 5 and 6. Or you can go with the rotation piece where you have Lockjaw, you drop Electro into it, you get the additional upside, and you push it back into your deck. You can start triggering your Thor, just a lot of flexibility. And then if you flip into a non-advantageous card with Lockjaw, a lot of times you can move that card out by the end of the game, whether it be a Nightcrawler, a Vision, or you can try to force them to accidentally cap out their side of the location by flipping into something like Magneto or Arrow. And so, of course, with the featured location, we can run Electro. We drop it on 3 into Oscorp Tower. We can send that onto their side of the board. They will then be stuck with the Electro, with the downside of that ongoing ability, while we get the upside of having the +1 max energy. And so let's run through the entire deck list really quickly. First up, we have Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is going to be a cheap card that's going to be decent to drop onto the board as a way to rotate, or sometimes we just want to play him onto the board and he has that flexibility to reach harder to reach locations. He gives us that maneuverability, and so sometimes that may be what we need to find a winning condition with our leader in readjusting the current cards and power that we have on the board to find a way that we can drop leader efficiently. And then we have Scarlet Witch. So some games, there are going to be locations that we just can't run against, or we're just at a disadvantage with. Scarlet Witch is going to give us a chance to randomly change one of those. Sometimes this can backfire, but what I've found is more often than not, it's a decent switch. And especially with today's location, if it looks like maybe they stack it with a lot of 0-cost, 1-cost cards, we can switch that location so that we don't get those sent to us, but instead they keep those in their lane, and then we can easily change and swing that location. And then we have Electro. He's going to help us ramp into our higher cost cards, and if we can send him onto the opponent's side of the board, even better. Then we have Lockjaw, the bestest of boys. I love a good Lockjaw list. It can always create so many crazy swings, and a lot of times that is going to give you enough of a random element that it will let you either push for 4 or 8 cube games more often than just a very specific standard play line. So if the opponent thinks that it is coming down to an RNG flip, they're more likely to stay, even if you know that your odds are really good, that whatever you flip into is going to be beneficial. they're more likely to stay than if they know that you're going to play a Destroyer or a Professor X or a Leader, something that they guarantee lose against. You can sneak out a lot higher cube games with something that is a little bit more RNG based, or at least has the perception of being incredibly RNG based. And then we have Thor. Thor and Lockjaw, I feel like they go hand in hand, especially if you're running Odin in a list. Thor can start getting really big really quickly, and so then you can start creating some absolutely insane combos with that rotation, with that double trigger of Odin, for a lot of upside. And then we have Jubilee. Jubilee, I have found that unless it's close to the end of the game and we have a lane that just has Lockjaw, most of the time dropping Jubilee fills up a lane too quickly. We don't always want to flood that lane incredibly quick unless we have something like Vision or Nightcrawler in our deck or in that location that we know that we're going to be able to move out at some point. Otherwise, capping out the lane early just gives the enemy a lot of information that they can then use to kind of determine where they should better place their cards. What we want with this deck list is to position our cards in a way that they are uncertain. We're going to be able to move cards, maneuver cards, move their cards in a way that makes them really uncertain about where they can drop their power and where it's going to be most efficient. And then we have Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is going to be really good at floating around the board. If we flip into her, she can always move out of that lane by the end of the game, adding that power to another lane that might be harder to reach, or maybe it just needs a little bit of extra push to become a win. Captain Marvel is really flexible in this list, and if you can get her down on the board, she offers a lot of that kind of maneuverability that makes it hard for the opponent to play their cards efficiently. And then we have Vision. Vision, we're going to be able to move this card each turn, and so if we flip into this, that's going to be huge. Sometimes we may actually just drop Vision naturally onto the board. Let's say we did an Electro Ramp on 3. We could do Vision on 4, or sometimes even Vision on 5 feels okay. If we're trying to set up a perfect leader play, Vision is not bad, and I know Vision is not ran very often because by turn 5 you want to do some really powerful plays. In this deck list, he feels pretty good, and if you flip into him with Lockjaw, it feels even better. And then we have Arrow. Arrow has seen a lot of play recently after getting buffed up to 8 power instead of, I believe, 6. It feels like her power push and her potential is a lot more than just a kind of disruption or tech card. She also offers a decent power push as well, either flipping into Arrow or maybe dropping Arrow and then following that up with an Odin. Sometimes can almost lock out your opponent when they are not anticipating it, especially if we send them an Electro on turn 3, and then on turn 5 or 4, we drop Arrow, and then 5 or 6, we drop an Odin. That could force their 2-turn plays, whatever lane they wanted them to be in. We can force them into a very specific lane and location where we have the advantage, and it can make it really difficult for the opponents to play optimally. And then we have Leader. I'm not very good at running Leader most of the time, but what this deck list allows me to do is maneuver our power so that we can set up an efficient leader play. So Leader's not always going to be the play. If you think they're running something like Destroyer or something that really might tank your board, you want to be cautious with Leader. But if you can maneuver your power, move your Vision, move your Nightcrawler in a way that it's going to optimally allow you to keep the lead with Leader and have space to copy whatever they drop, a lot of times you can steal away wins by dropping this, and it's kind of that surprise element, and it allows you to run into a lot of 8-cube games where you would have lost otherwise. And then we have Odin. Odin's going to re-trigger all of our owner abilities. So let's say they sent you a Green Goblin, a Hobgoblin. You can then resend that back. You can flip into this to re-trigger your Leader, your Arrow, your Thor, your Mjolnir, your Jubilee, a lot of really good targets for Odin in this list, and the amount of power that he can push and the flexibility we have with this card is unmatched. And then finally we have Magneto. Magneto on reveal is going to pull all opposing 3 and 4 cost cards to this location. So this can oftentimes be a Wong. So let's say they are setting up a Wong play, and they made the Wong decision of trying to set that up against us, and we have Magneto in hand. We can pull that Wong out of the lane that they're setting it up in, and most of the time with this list, if they're doing something like a setup turn, we will be able to have initiative going into that next turn. We can disrupt whatever they were trying to play, and it makes it really hard for them to trigger their combos optimally. And then other times we might flip into Magneto and then surprise them by accidentally forcing them to cap out that location before they were ready to. So that gives us a very good insight into how much power we need in that lane to win, or how much power we need in the other lanes to swing those as well. And so that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so first up we have Simber, and right off the bat they snap. I'm not going to partake in that just yet. We will be able to potentially do our Electro into Murder World, which will be great. Or if we get the Oscorp Tower, Electro is going to be better there. Now, before we get too far in this game, we did currently just hit 3,540 subscribers, which is phenomenal. I'm really curious how many we can get to by the time we hit global launch. And so if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, but you enjoy the content, we're doing daily Marvel Snap content. Consider subscribing if you are enjoying what you're seeing. And so the second location is Jotunheim, but I think we go ahead and play our Scarlet Witch onto the board. I think we changed that location. I don't think we keep the upside from it. Oh, so Sinister London pops up, and so they duplicate their Viper, which is an interesting one. Let's go ahead and go with the Electro, which will get destroyed here. I think that's going to be better than doing Electro here, just because we don't really need the 6 power all that much. But if we can have initiative, we can have 2 Captain Marvels, we can have an arrow that pulls their card over. We can create a lot of upside for ourselves if we can steal away initiative. But let's go ahead and go with an Electro. They go with Viper that just, oh, they're going with a death deck. Okay, they must be going with the death deck. So they destroyed the Viper, which then, with a Carnage, which then gets destroyed from Murder World. I have to assume that they're running like a death, and that they're wanting to get that death count up. And so maybe we hold out and hope for like a double leader play. I think that could be pretty advantageous for us. So I think we do play our Captain Marvel. If they do a leader and a Taskmaster, our Taskmaster, we wouldn't get the upside of doing the Taskmaster, so we could always do the double leader, which would then summon potentially 2 deaths. Maybe we keep the Sinister London lane clean. We can keep the Sinister London location clean. We can drop our Captain Marvel in Dark Dimension. That way it'll kind of act as a floater. And then it leaves us open for doing a double leader play on one of the later turns. So we do have initiative here. I think we pull their cards over with Arrow into Murder World, so if they are going to try to maybe do a double Hobgoblin in Sinister London, we can at least pull it over and make sure that it's only 1, and that'll allow us to probably, or pretty comfortably, do the double leader play on the final turn. So let's go ahead and lock in the Arrow. They don't do anything here either. Interesting. So maybe they're going to go with a... oh no. So maybe they're going to go with an Infinite, in which case... a leader here would copy into one of these directions. We would win this one and then most likely win the other one just because they can only do one drop. Relying on an Infinite seems weird. If they pass here as well, I'm completely perplexed. Okay, so we have the leader, which then copies a double debris. I am so confused. I don't know what's going on anymore. Not how we thought we were going to get 4 cubes today. I'm guessing maybe the Carnage over here was a mistake. Maybe they forgot about Murder World, and then they wanted to hold out for the double debris play towards the end of the game. But either way, we will take 4 cubes where we can. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one and see how we do. All right, so next up we have Draco or Draco. And before we get too far into this game, I do have a lot of shoutouts to give from our last lunch live stream. And so we get Weird World, so this one all of a sudden right off the bat is going to be just that. It's going to be weird. We can change this location with the Scarlet Witch, but we don't know if that's the play or not. So as far as our shoutouts, we had DaddyGamingNightly, who continued their subscription for a 2nd month. We had Ken Marvel Snap, who joined us as a channel member. We had Timothy Core and T-Dog join us as channel members. And then we also had Alexander Burkat, the one that created the list from today, who gifted a channel membership, which was received by Christy Gamala. And so thank you guys so much for that support. It is absolutely overwhelming. You guys are the best community I could have ever asked for. Thank you guys for just continuing to show up and be here. And then all of the additional support is very much greatly appreciated. And so I think I'm going to change the Weird World location. Let's go ahead and change the Weird World location just to see kind of what happens. And then in addition to our channel members, we have a couple more shoutouts as well. Actually, just one more. We had D-Brom, who used the super chat feature. They sent us a message that said that they used our Wong decklist from our free-to-play series, and they hit infinite with it, which is something that I always love to hear and love to see. And so thank you, D-Brom, as well for your support. So now back onto the current game. We have Cosmo now. We're going to start drawing into our actual cards. And so if we can draw into our vision and they didn't get our vision by chance, then we're going to be able to win the Sanctum Sanctorum fairly easily. And so I think we drop Cosmo into Washington, D.C., and then we kind of see and play it out from there. Maybe we do a Jubilee on 4 and just kind of see what we draw into. Maybe we save some of the space in Lemuria for a leader play. So I don't know. Both feel okay. I'm going to go with a Jubilee here. Maybe we can get a cheeky Professor X drop down where we can steal this location away. Maybe we pull into Vision, which would be beautiful. They dropped into Enchantress, which would cancel out our ongoing ability, but because of Cosmo, on reveals won't trigger, so the goodest of, I guess the second goodest of boys. We can't do Lockjaw like that. They're both the goodest of boys. And so Thor is actually going to have a hard time getting buffed up here. I think what we're going to do, unless they drew into Mjolnir this turn, I think we're going to go with a Professor X play. It feels just okay. We are going to be able to do a Nightcrawler and a Captain Marvel to win this one. If we can lock down the Lemuria lane, they're not going to be able to buff up their Thor after this turn, because they would have to drop it here. Cosmo is going to prohibit those on-reveal abilities from triggering. They snap back, which is a fair amount of scary, but I think it is. I think it is what it is. I think we have to go with it. I think we wait and see. Ooh, so they skip this turn. No way we win. There's no way for them to win unless they can go extremely wide and beat 6 power in the Sanctum Sanctorum. They're not going to be able to win here. Draco. Very unfortunately, they weren't able to get the Thor trigger to go off. Ooh, they have a huge Infinite and then Mjolnir, which they would have dropped here to buff up their Thor, but unfortunately it is just not quite enough. The flexibility with our Captain Marvel allows us to win Sanctum Sanctorum. Their Professor X stabbed them in the back, allowed us to win Lemuria, and so that is an 8-cube game. And so that is what this deck list offers, is a lot of flexibility and ways to kind of play around your opponent and the locations. And so that's 2-0. We've gained 12 cubes in 2 games. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. See how high we can go in about 6 or 7 games. All right, so next up we have Bork and Blade of the Ruined King. Is that what it was in League of Legends? Blade of the Ruined King? I think it was. I gotta look it up now. I know we've matched up against Bork a few times, but I feel like that was an acronym. League of Legends, Blade of the Ruined King, so Bork. And so yeah, that was an on reveal attack style weapon, and if I remember right, it was a pretty good weapon. Oh my gosh! So Sakaar pulls into their Green Goblin, it pulls into our Electro, which is kind of unfortunate. We don't get the decision of like where to play or who to play. If Mirror Dimension flips over into, how come we didn't get the extra energy? So it's turn 2, we have 2 energy. We'll see if we get the extra one next turn. We should have 4 energy next turn. I think the way the on reveals trigger, maybe it just doesn't come through until that next turn. We'll see. So they do a Baron Mordo, which draws into our Magneto, but Magneto was already 6 cost, and so now they don't get any upside out of it. And so that is kind of one of the potential downsides of Baron Mordo, is that you can't guarantee what you're gonna draw for your opponent. And so unfortunately the last location is Oscorp. If Sakaar had not pulled into our Electro, we would have been able to send it over their way, which would have been absolutely beautiful. But instead, we are unable to do that. We're gonna play away, we're gonna move our Nightcrawler away from Oscorp. We don't have any 4-cost cards to play just yet. We can do a 5-cost next turn. We actually pull into a leader, which is not great. They pull into their Arnim Zola, which duplicates their Lizard, which is, I think, better than our leader play, our early leader play. And so, we have 5 energy we can use here. We're not going to be able to pull any of their cards with their current cards with Magneto. I think what we do is do an arrow play into Sakaar, or do we do an arrow play into Oscorp? Let's do an arrow play into Oscorp Tower. Whatever they drop, wherever they drop it, it's going to get moved over into or they don't drop anything. That's fine as well. So we do have Odin. We can re-trigger our leader now. Is that the play we want to go with? We can always do something like a Magneto on the last turn, or maybe a Captain Marvel to act as that kind of buffer, or it's just with this lane being so close to being filled, leader Odin into leader feels a little bit scary even. But I think we do go with it a turn early. And so let's go with the leader that's going to cap out our Sakaar location. Okay. Okay, so we send them a Hobgoblin. They send us a Hobgoblin. So if they want to win this location, they're going to have to invest a lot of resources. So we have 8. We have 6. They have -8. They're going to have to do a really big power push here if they want to win this one. We can only drop 1 card, so we need to make it good. Magneto would swing Sakaar for us currently. They would have to drop 2 resources onto the board, and I'm not sure that they can do that. They had the Arnim Zola that they were going to want to like maneuver some of their power. So I think we just go with a Magneto, see if our brute force strength in Sakaar or our little arrow strength in Oscorp Tower can be enough to win. Now it might not. We might lose this one. Yeah, especially against a double play. So we tie in Sakaar. We lose Oscorp Tower by 12. They lose Sakaar by 14, just on the quick maths. And so we barely, I thought we lost that one. But because of the copied Hobgoblin, we were able to keep that lead just ever so slightly. Wow. Very, very close game. I will take those. But those are not the most comfortable wins. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one, see if we can keep going. We are going up against Only One, which was our first member on the channel. So hopefully we have a very good game. We don't go against them or match against them very often. But when we do, it is always a very good match. And so we do have Oscorp Tower. We are going to be able to send them the Electro on turn 3 to give us the upside of that interaction and then give them the downside of only being able to play 1 card per turn. And then Bar with No Name is a little bit tricky. If we draw into Scarlet Witch, maybe we change that as like a sneaky way on turn 6, just as a sneaky way to push that additional power and swing that location. All of these locations feel pretty bad. I do want to snap, but since it's against Only One, I don't feel like I haven't matched against him in weeks, if not months, and so I don't want to run him off if he doesn't have a great play line. And so I want to let this one play through. I want to have a good clean match here. So we are gonna, well, I guess how good and how clean could it be if you? I mean, we send them Electro. They can only play 1 card per turn, but they get such a cute Electro out of it. I saw a regular Electro, and I forgot how the normal Electro looks because I'm so used to the chibi one now. And so we send them Electro. They can only play 1 card per turn. We have the additional energy, so we can do something like a Lockjaw and a Nightcrawler here. Or we can do, yeah, no. I don't think we do a Nightcrawler. I think what we do is maybe a Captain Marvel, and then we can start stacking our arrow. We can do arrow on 5, we can do Odin on 6. That would force them to push all of their power into Oscorp Tower. And the reason I don't want to do a Lockjaw is because if we flip into Scarlet Witch, that feels really, really bad. All of a sudden, we might accidentally change this location. We can no longer change Bar with No Name. It just becomes a little bit more difficult to do. So they pulled an Invisible Woman with their Jubilee, which doesn't feel like a really strong play, especially considering that they can only do 1 card per turn. I almost want to pull whatever they drop over into Bar with No Name, but that just feels too risky. So let's go ahead and play our Arrow and our Nightcrawler. If they do try to play away from the Oscorp Tower, we're going to be able to pull that over and cap it out. So we do. So now this one's actually not going to reveal, so we don't know what it is. We just know that they were going to play it over and nowhere, and now they can't. We have 3 cards left in our list. 1 is Leader, 1 is Scarlet Witch, and then 1 is Magneto. Do we gamble here? I don't think we do. We could gamble and do a Lockjaw and a Jubilee. That's going to pull into 2 more of our cards, and to try to get the Scarlet Witch interaction here. I don't think we risk it. I think instead we go with something simple like just an Odin, just like an Odin into this location. If we don't lose Oscorp, Captain Marvel always has the flexibility to move out. Well, I don't think we get any benefit from just not playing Odin here, right? So Odin would give us a guaranteed win here. I guess no. Their Invisible Woman, I think, would go off after our Captain Marvel tries to resolve. That's going to be one of those interactions that I'm not for sure how it resolves. So let's go with the Odin play into nowhere. They go with a Magneto play, so they win this location by 2 currently. As long as we win... Ooh, they had a Captain Marvel as well. And so their Captain Marvel wasn't able to move over because between just the 2 locations, it wasn't... If it moved over to one, it would lose the other one. And so going back and forth just wasn't quite able to do it. They won by 2 here, and we won by 3 here. And so it was a 1-point deficit for how tough this start was and how bad this Jubilee pool was. This was incredibly close. And now that I think about it, knowing that they had a Captain Marvel here, which let's take a second and appreciate the variant. If we played Captain Marvel here, or if we played Lockjaw and then rotated here and we did get this changed, their Captain Marvel could have potentially moved here to win that secondary location. And so it's probably better that we didn't go with the RNG flip on that last turn. And so let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. That is 4-0. Let's see how many we can go. All right, so next up we have Lone Wolf. And first location is Atlantis. We have our Scarlet Witch. So we can rotate a location if we need to. They drop a hood, so they're going to have a 6-power demon. We need to look out for potentially a Viper play, which might be something that they end up dropping. We're going to pass. We're going to pass this turn. We're going to see what that last location is. I'm tempted to drop the Scarlet Witch this turn, but I think we wait a minute. We slow it down just a touch. The last one is Elysium. Interesting. So we can do a Jubilee play and a Nightcrawler play. Now let's hold the Nightcrawler. We can do a Jubilee play. They snap. So maybe they have a Destroyer, maybe they have a Professor X that they're going to be able to drop next turn that we need to keep an eye out for. Let's go with the Jubilee and just the Jubilee this turn. We'll see what it pulls into. If it's Lockjaw, that's perfect. Ooh, so they do have a Warpath, so that tells me that they are running probably a Destroyer. Usually Warpath is pretty prevalent in like a Destroyer, a lane lockdown, one of those types of lists. And so I have to expect maybe a Hobgoblin in here, in this lane or this lane. And so right now they have 15 power. If we did something like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, if we did 12 power here because of the Atlantis bonus, and we resent whatever goblin they sent here back over their way on the last turn with Odin, that would take away an extra 4 power. Our 12 would end up beating their 11, which I think is gonna be a sneaky play. Let's not even let them know. Let's not even let them know that we are planning to do it that way. We're not gonna play Nightcrawler just yet, but let's play Vision into Monster Metropolis. I think they do a Hobgoblin here. I don't think that they do a Professor X. Oh, they do a Professor X over into Atlantis. Interesting. I'm glad that we didn't waste our Vision then. So we do get Lockjaw. We can rotate. We have Thor's Mjolnir in the list. Let's change Monster Metropolis because we don't want that to be the location for their Destroyer. So we can do Scarlet Witch, we can do Electro, and we can hold Vision there for now, just in case we need to pull him out. We don't want to have this one capped out. We have our Jubilee. We don't have a way to pull into any additional cards. I actually think we dodge a Hobgoblin here. So we're going to move our Vision over. We're going to place a Nightcrawler. We can move either one of those. So it still gives us a little bit of flexibility in like where we push our last turn play, but it protects us from a Hobgoblin here. A Hobgoblin here would still get us, but I think they drop it into Elysium if they drop it at all. Ooh, or they could do Hood, or they could do it here. Oh no, they do it mid. Oh no, maybe they just drop their Destroyer this turn. Oh no. I don't get to see what this was. What else do we have in our list? We have 3 cards left. In our list, we have Electro, we have Mjolnir, and we have Captain Marvel. No, we don't have Electro. So in our list, we have Arrow, Captain Marvel, and Mjolnir. So either way, it is a minimum of 6 power. It's just a matter of where that 6 power is. And we honestly need it in Dark Dimension because I think that is where they have it. I think that's where they have their big power push. If we could move our Nightcrawler out, that would be beautiful because we could draw into another card with Jubilee. But this pushes us to 15. Feels pretty bad. If this is Destroyer back here, We might lose an 8-cuber, but we have to let it play out. We are gonna rotate our Electro though, right? We still rotate Electro, so we have a chance of still pulling into that high power card. Maybe we leave Vision over here. No, we're gonna lock this in. We're gonna stop second guessing it. Wow, they stack a lot of power into Dark Dimension. Let's hope for an Arrow. I think Arrow is gonna be our best bet for our rotation here. I don't know that it keeps us the win though. Can we get an Arrow? That's gonna be our biggest power. Nice, not terrible. Their Destroyer comes through, and then they can stack stuff on top of it afterwards, which does feel, ooh, huge. Okay. Well, as far as last turns go, that one feels pretty bad. That is a pretty bad beat. That is an 8-cube loss. We don't get those too often. I usually try not to gamble too much when we're running a pretty advantageous list. Not all Destroyer lists run a Taskmaster though, so I wasn't fully anticipating a Taskmaster. I thought if they had one, maybe they split it. Feels bad. Let's go ahead and jump into the next ones. Let's see if we can recover a few of those cubes. All right, so next up we have Stratos, and in our hand we have our Lockjaw. So if we don't draw into Electro by turn 3, Lockjaw into one of the other lanes is probably going to be the play. I mean, this really doesn't feel all that bad. We don't know if we're going to draw Electro. If we do, we can always rotate it with Lockjaw. I think we go ahead and send the Oscorp lane away. I guess we could have dropped it in a different lane. We didn't have to change it because we just didn't have to play anything there. But that's fine. And so then we draw into Electro now. Okay, so we have Lockjaw. We are going to be able to do a Jubilee into the Lockjaw lane next turn. To push quite a bit of power. Maybe we can get a Vision, something that can be kind of flexible and move out of Stark Tower as needed. But for now, let's just go ahead and go with the Lockjaw. They go with the Thor. And I have not seen this Thor variant. I'm not sure how I feel about Baby Thor. There's a lot of blank space. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. So let's go with the Jubilee play. That's going to give us the 2 cards in Stark Tower. We did draw into Vision, unfortunately, so we're not going to be able to have that kind of flexible piece unless we just play it naturally on 5, which could be a potential play. We draw into our Thor, which is not bad. Definitely not bad. Then we pull into Arrow, which they already had a card here. So it turns out that that's not great. So we can cycle... So they have Wong, which feels pretty bad. We don't have Magneto in hand, so we could potentially flip into it here, which also doesn't feel great, other than the fact that it stacks their Thor and takes that threat out of the other lane. So I think we do our Mjolnir, we cycle it, then let's go ahead and go with a... I'm torn between the Captain Marvel or Vision. Let's go with Captain Marvel. She's going to have the flexibility to kind of move where she wants to. And so between here or here, maybe we can get the upside. And if we flip into a Nightcrawler, we can actually move him out of this lane, the Stark Tower lane. Afterwards, nope, we do flip into Magneto. And so now we do have them stacked in Stark Tower. So that means that that's probably a location that they're going to end up winning. Because even if they down do an Odin, a Mjolnir, this one is really, really strong. And so Grand Central pulls into our leader, but that's not going to do us any good because we don't have any space here. Pulls into their Storm, so they only have one more turn to drop cards. I guess there's only one more turn in the game.